So, hello, Jerry, my brother. So, I saw your comments, so I figured it's probably better if I responded in a video rather than type. So, the so it's not that there were five different spheres. What happened was, you see, the in the early church, the word Catholic simply means universal. And what happened is, like anything else, by the second, you see, remember at the time of Jesus, the Roman Empire essentially dominated in that area, in Asia Minor up to Palestine, and of course Rome. So the known part of Europe up to Asia Minor and Palestine, Rome dominated. Now, by the first century, the most Christian parts, sorry, the eastern part of the Roman Empire was the more Christian part. There were not many Christians in the western part. When I say western part, I'm talking of Europe. What you know today as Europe, gong gong gong, and it was the eastern part that had more Christian. When I say eastern part, I'm talking of present day Turkey, Greece, and all of that area. Those were the more Christian parts. So by 314, of course, in the first century, second century, third century, there was a lot of Christian persecution. But in time, uh, all that came to pass. Constantine became a Christian, and by 314 there was the Edict of Milan, which essentially brought peace, or at least some degree of change that helped the Christians to be accepted. And of course, Constantine himself became a Christian, so things helped. Now, the problem was Europe was divided into two, and they were actually ran that way. It was there was a so they had an emperor that ran the west, and there was an emperor. I'm giving a very abbreviated history here. There was an emperor that ran the west. There was an emperor that ran the East. Now, remember what I said, the East had more Christian. Christianity had not really spread into Western Europe, which is Rome per se, at that point in time. We're not even talking of UK and France at this point in time. There was really no Christian presence. And I'm talking the fourth century here, the early fourth century. So what happened was, Constantine, of course, the ambitious guy. So it turned out the guy who was running Eastern Europe was actually his brother-in-law. So because the Edict of Milan, which was enacted in 314, which they both agreed to, I mean, the two emperors. So what he did was later on, he found some excuse and said, oh, this guy is oppressing the Christians in Eastern Europe, because he really wanted to unite the whole thing. So he waged some war and he defeated that guy. I think his name was Licinius or whatever. He waged some war and he essentially defeated that guy and he united the whole thing. So it became a united Roman Empire. Later on, he moved his capital to the eastern axis, where there were more Christian. So, and which he named after himself. He named the capital, the new capital, Constantinople. His name is Constantine. He named it Constantinople. And that was why by the time that guy in the church in Alexandria, Arian, was causing the trouble, with his weird teaching about the Trinity, and to unite, to bring the church together. Some people advised him, why don't you call this big Christian conference, which he did in 325 to 330 AD. He brought it to the eastern part of the empire in Nicaea, which was very close to Constantinople, where he could control it. So what happened was all the bishops, well, he invited all the bishops, but at the end of the day, there were about 400 bishops who came to that conference. The Pope wasn't there, but the Pope sent representatives, but so did all the other uh, bishops and senior bishops. So the way it worked was there was no Roman Catholic Church in the sense that no, they stood on their own. After the Nicaea, there were other what they call ecumenical conferences. I can't remember how many now. I think they had about 9 over time, where they helped to formulate and answer all the thorny and big questions. So the big, what you could call maybe the archbishops or um, uh, the better word to use is the metropolitan. So they were like the senior bishops, and they had other bishops like you could call them junior bishops under them. So there were four main churches or main metropolitans, senior bishops in the eastern axis of the church. That's the church, the metropolitan in Jerusalem, the one in Antioch, the one in Constantinople, and the one in North Africa, okay, Alexandria in Egypt. So till today, they still have somebody they call a pope in Egypt. The title they use is also pope, okay. So now, but there was only one in that traditional, remember that division I started with, in western axis of the Roman Empire. And the only one there was what? The Bishop of Rome, which is the official title of the Pope. Now, because this guy was the only one in the western axis, so as Europe began to expand and Christianity began to go there, for instance, the Pope sent Augustine, not Augustine of Hippo, which is in Egypt. There was a different Augustine. It's called, what's his name now? Augustine of Canterbury. That was in the 6th, 7th century. He sent him to England to evangelize. So Christianity came to England, and then it spread around Europe. So the Roman Catholic Church expanded into Germany, present-day England, present-day Scotland, and all of these places. So it's expanded so much in that area you could call the Western Europe of today, okay, or the Western axis of the Roman Empire. So because of that, it gave the size of the Roman Catholic Empire, you could call it, got large, of course, until the Reformation, which happened centuries and centuries later. Now, even then, so in the 4th century, they had this first conference, and then subsequently there were other conferences until what they call the Great Schism, which was the division between the Western axis, the Western Church, which is the Roman Catholic Church, and the Eastern churches, those other four metropolitans, or the four great bishops, if you could call them those, until they had their eventual division, which happened in the 11th, 12th century, thereabouts. So that was the way things worked. They always collaborated. One was not senior to the other. They were like partners. They were like colleagues, brethren, working together in the great Catholic Church. So the Roman Catholic Church was just a branch of the Catholic Church, just like the church in Alexandria was a branch of the main church, and the church in Antioch was a branch, and the church in Jerusalem was a branch, the church in Constantinople was a branch. They were all branches of the one great Catholic Church. I mean, this is a general overview I'm giving here. I just hope it helps a little bit. Thank you.